Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us for the Max June Artist Talk. This month we're here to have a conversation with several local artists and family members of the artist who's currently exhibiting in the Minnesota Gallery at the McGrosty Center, Liz White. So I'm happy to be joined here this evening with Melissa White, Deb Page, Leah Friesen, and Sandy Thompson. And I just wanted to give us the opportunity real quick, since a lot of people haven't been able to visit our physical space yet, to see what the exhibit actually looks like in real, and hopefully in the next couple days with the Max soft reopenings and other things like that, maybe you'll be able to come and attend and see it in person yourself. So I'm just going to share my screen here real quick so we can watch a quick 30-second video about, or just kind of showing the physical space. So, oh no,
You do that again?
Yep.
Okay, try it now.
Okay. Perfect, and I'll share that. And let's see. I can't remember how to do this. Slideshow, there we go. Okay, so I'll click here and we can see a little video about the exhibit in real. So when this exhibit started coming together, we were able to have access to a number of Liz's works, a really vast variety of them that Katie and I worked on selecting and finding ones that kind of spoke to a specific theme or practice, or even like terminology that she used related to her work. And that's where the title Watermedia emerged out of. And that will kind of be one of the discussion questions posed to our participants here this evening, which we'll get into a little bit later. So I did just want to once again thank everyone who's able to be here tonight. All the artists who are participating are generous supporters of their time and energies in the Itasca area arts community. And Melissa, thank you as well for being able to join us this evening. So I think now that we've seen a little bit about the physical space, I would like to kind of open it up to each of the artists. If Deb, or if Melissa, if you wouldn't mind starting us off, I think, with just a little bit of knowledge about you're Liz's daughter,
yeah.
her work, your experience, and the comings and goings of her artistic career, and relationships in this area and beyond.
Yeah, no, first I just want to really thank you for putting this on. It's a really nice tribute to my mom, and just the overall, work that she did. And also, really thank you to, I think, Grand Rapids State Bank, who's sponsoring it. So very, very nice tribute, and really grateful that you were able to put this together. So I think one of the things, and I liked the title of Watermedia, because as I really reflected back, obviously, my mom was a lifelong Grand Rapids resident, grew up there, lived there most of her, life, doing some other travel or living elsewhere part of the time. But for her, Grand Rapids was always home. And especially the joy that she got from being around the lake, around the beauty of the lake and around water. And even when she and my dad had a house in Florida, they were able to really enjoy the water. Same thing in Montana, really were able to enjoy the water. So I think, really nice, nice tribute to that, and really expressive of a lot of things that she really enjoyed. So thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. I really appreciate that. And, myself having moved to this area recently, I know, I've been here coming on, I think, 4 or 5 years now, but when I first started working to the MAC, I had heard a lot about Liz and had met her only on 1 or 2 occasions. But even like the first time that I worked with the Juried Show, it was just exciting to see like her technique and the vibrancy of her work. And you know, so I'm glad I had the opportunity to meet her at that time when she was living up here.
Yeah, good, thank you.
So I would then, the first two questions that I've kind of posed to our participants here this evening is just to give them a little bit of background to our viewers about themselves, about their career, and in what capacity that they know Liz. And then if we want to even merge into the second question as we're going through the folks here, I'm also curious if you could dive into a little bit more about how Liz's artistic career or practice has impacted your own life and your work. So if you wouldn't mind, Deb, would you be willing to kick us off?
Absolutely. So my husband and I moved here in 1978, and Liz was actually one of the first people I met. I don't remember how we met, but I'm sure it had something to do with art. Back then, she was would bring workshops here with nationally renowned watercolor artists. And she took a bazillion workshops herself all over the country. And then she brought some here. And that's kind of my first recollection of her. But we went on to, we had so many things in common. We exercised together. We both loved our dogs like crazy. Yeah. We liked kayaking together. And we exchanged, early on, we would go to each other's houses like maybe once a month and kind of just go over what we had been doing. We did that together. We did figure drawing together. And then also I owned Frame Up for 36 years. So I framed, art for all of those years. She was just a really great friend on so many levels. I do have an art degree. I do pastel and block printing. The overriding thing that I loved about Liz and her approach to art was her absolute fearlessness to try something new and to not care at all about the outcome. But it was the process, and she didn't care if other people liked what she did. And that fearlessness, I feel as an artist and the other artists, many other artists I know, it is so hard to let go of what people think about what you're doing. And she was just so bold. She started out, with her watercolors, which were pretty traditional and classical, flowers and water and boats. And then she evolved so much. She changed so much, both in medium and in going towards abstraction, though there was always some realism in it. So just her absolute boldness of not caring what people thought about her work was so inspiring to me as an artist. So there you go.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I love to hear the way that you discuss that in terms of fearlessness, because I know when we received many of Liz's works here and then had us to choose a selection of them for the gallery, there was so much within there, like that you could see that fearlessness represented in just the variety and choices and like figures, like just across everything. So I really like that phrasing of fearlessness. So thank you. Next, I think Leah, I can only see one person. Would you mind going into this a little bit with us?
Yes, absolutely. I don't do many of these meetings, so awkwardness. I'm so glad to hear Deb's stories with it. It's wonderful to know a little bit more of the history about her in the area. I've known her for the last 10 years or so, but not before that. when I was younger here. I'm sure I was in periphery to her at some point, but wasn't aware of it. When I began working at the Art Center about a decade ago, after moving back, I don't remember how I met her or when, but she was kind of like part of it. Like she was just always in and out and, you know, involved, either coming and taking the figure drawing classes or teaching things herself, and I felt like when she would come to the classes that I taught, which she did often, I would just learn from her. I would learn from her at least as much as she was getting from me. I can guarantee that. I love the way that Deb described her. So I'm an art teacher in the community. I mostly work with kids, but a lot of different kind of populations. And in my own teaching, there's been so many things where I've just kind of like taken Liz's inspiration and, you know, altered a way that I would react to kids, and in a lot of ways, her influence on me as, I guess, a co-artist has been as big as probably a lot of the professors I had in school, just because of the energy that she would bring to the work. And if she was working alongside you, you know, she was so open. There was never anyone whose opinion she wasn't, you know, open to, or a technique that she would be closed to. It was so incredible to be in that space with her and to kind of get to partake in the energy that she would bring. I love her work. I feel like it's incredibly fresh, and kind of knowing that process orientation, I would say, is the main thing. Like the fearlessness, the you know, the kind of commitment to process, that there was so little judgment, and, you know, you spend time with it and you sort of try to absorb it because it's really difficult to come by, like Deb said.
Thank you, Leah.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Thank you. Sandy, are you still with us as well here tonight?
Oh, yes, I am. I'm here.
Excellent.
Would you like me to? Okay.
Thank you.
Well, yes, I'm Sandra Thompson, and I've been an artist seriously for 12 years. And my husband and I moved here back home to Minnesota, and we moved up north. And so here I was, it was 2011, and I thought, oh my gosh, I have to meet other artists. So quickly I went down to the McCrosty and jumped in on just one of those open studios and met so many nice people. And they all said, you have to meet Liz if you love collaging.
Mhm.
So sure enough, she had a class that was coming up, and I got in the class, and here she comes the first day, and she's holding these huge boxes, and they're filled with the most colorful collage papers I've ever seen. And she's collected all these feathers and odd things, and she said, go have fun. And she let us just play with those papers. So I remember her as being very sharing and giving us that opportunity to grow on our own. I also took the Christopher Shank class that she brought in, the artist from California, who was the instrumental in the Palette magazine, this Palette magazine. Can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And Liz she had 2 paintings in this magazine. And it was so wonderful to see all the people that came to that workshop that we had at they had at the sawmill with, and I'm sure Katie was involved in that as well. But we had people, because of her and her interest of sharing, we had this wonderful artist come to this small town, and I met so many people from Bemidji and Duluth, from all over the area. So it was a great place to touch bases with other artists. And after seeing that show with music to it on your virtual reality, and it just touched my heart because you could see her beautiful style of color and form and shape. all the things she tried to teach us in her class, but was there looking at us as I looked at those pictures. And, you know, she always was so experimental, and she always explored new mediums like encaustic, and something I've also become to love. So I was really joyful to see that show, this show, and to hear more about her. So
Thank
he
you so
really
much.
had a joy.
Thank you so much. I just like so appreciate hearing everyone's perspective here, and it just makes me think about the work that we do, but also the work that the artists in our communities do, and how someone who's as such a catalyst that it sounds like Liz is, you know, in terms of engaging with people, making them feel like they are part of the process that she's creating, developing that fearlessness, building relationships, bringing people in from all over the place. You know, you can have a physical space, but you need those type of people in order to make these communities that we strive to build through the arts as vibrant as they are. And it's just always so great for me to hear and to witness, particularly the women artists in our community as they, I mean, starting with Ruth McRosty to Liz White, to all of the people who participate in our community today, what just powerhouses and people of excitement and passion that they brought to the work, that we can have these type of communities and conversations that we have here today. So thank you everyone for sharing a little bit about your backgrounds and what Liz's work meant to you, and how you're in relationship with her too. And I think it might also, we have talked about this already a little bit. I feel like all of you have touched on it. And I kind of would guide us then into the third question that I had proposed that maybe we have a discussion about here. And that was once again related to the title of the show, Watermedia. And like we said, related to watercolor, acrylic, and other water-based mediums as the emphasis of the works that are here in this gallery today. But I'm wondering if anyone wants to share if they see through her whole body of work, or just specifically in this exhibit, are there any touch points or things that you see as emblematic of her career, or you know, many of you already talked about this, you know, the fearlessness, but when you look back and looking into the future, when we view these exhibits or these works in other ways, is there something artistically in practice that you see really reflected across her body of work? And that's kind of open to if anyone, you know, I'm kind of a rambler, so my questions are always like, but just, you know, if anyone wants to dig in a little bit more about her practice or her style.
Sure, I would jump in there, Kayla. One thing that was impressive was her work ethic. So I can hardly remember a time. I mean, that's part of being an artist, is being able to go in the studio and work, not just when inspiration strikes you, because it just doesn't work that way. It's work. Artwork is work. And Liz was just a hard worker. She was a hard worker at everything she did. I mean, she was very disciplined. She exercised. I exercised with her at Center until, you know, maybe 3 years ago. She just had a really, really strong work ethic, and I think that is something that many want, of that kind of work ethic. She was fortunate. I mean, she was a school teacher early on. She taught grade school, I believe, in Coleraine. But she was fortunate in not having to work from the time I knew her. But she did have a dress store for a while too. That was very fun and very artistic.
Yeah.
It was really fun. But she sometimes it's even harder if you aren't working to make yourself go in and schedule yourself to work. And if she wasn't painting, then maybe she was making jewelry, or I don't know. It was her discipline. I was really loved the discipline. And as an artist, I think that it's a really important piece.
I could add to that.
Thanks, Leah.
So without the practice that Liz had, I don't think that she could have produced the incredible body of work that she has. I often think that, you know, the chance that in 25 or 50 years, you know, Elizabeth White is going to be like very, very collected is a really definite possibility, because her work is so, it's so incredible, the pieces that I've seen, and I've gone through, you know, a pretty decent amount of it at this point. And one thing I know is that if there's a preciousness to your process, that, you know, you kind of nitpick on a piece and you work it over again, it loses the vibrancy that her work has. And I don't believe you can get one without the other. I think, you know, she's just like the expressionists, just like people who it's more about making 100 pieces and then having, you know, 10 of those or 5 of those be absolutely phenomenal than worrying about making, you know, 10 pieces that are perfect. And you can't get one without the other. I think that you have to make a sheer amount of work, and she absolutely did. You know, getting through her studio and getting the chance to work with Katie on that was just an experience in itself. It was really, really amazing.
Yeah.
It was really amazing.
Yeah.
It was phenomenal. She used every kind of watercolor paper. She had all kinds of pastels. She had everything. She touched on it all. And I'm sure it came down to where she picked favorite shapes, and these shapes seem to simplify, and but they're still very vibrant with the colors that she uses. I don't know how her earlier works were, but as she progressed, they became more like, the last one was a mountain. You could tell there was a mountain there and some trees. She used a lot of nature. So she painted what she saw in a simple way that was beautifully done with different values of color. I really love them. I'm a fan.
I think it
I
was, oh, sorry.
I would just want to throw in one real quick thing about what her earlier work was like. So it was very traditional, you know, pretty flowers and very workshop oriented. You know, you could tell she had taken the workshop and they had said, this is, you know, a way to do it. And as a store owner, people would always come in and go, oh, I wish Liz would still do, you know, a pot of flowers.
Yeah.
People really loved those early things because they were what they knew, what they had seen before and what they knew. And we always had a share of people that would go, oh, I wish Liz would go back to doing sailboats and flowers. And I loved that she did not cave to that. Yeah.
She went on her own path.
Yeah. So I just was going to say, one of the things that my mom always would really talk about too, and even, you know, I remember more as a child, is she would always be observing, right? Like, oh, look how the light falls on, you know, that rock or that tree or mountain. And I think, you know, that obviously kind of continued and continued, you know, as Deb, I think you were saying, really as she became more abstract or much more of that sort of expressionist, but it was always that, how did she see it? You know, so she was really taking what, you know, that realism that we all see, but just in how she saw, you know, the light interplay with it, or, you know, the color, the unique color of green leaves, right? Where people look and say, oh yeah, the trees are green. And my mom would be like, know they're, viridian, blah, 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 some sort of green with a touch of yellow and blue, through there. So I think that's the way she saw things, and she processed them that kind of came out in these shapes, and the vibrancy that you really see.
Lucky you to have a mom that does such wonderful art.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, we were very fortunate.
Well, thank you everyone for this conversation. I mean, I know that I'm still learning and learning from all of you and learning from the work that I get to see and experience every day here in the gallery. I'm also thinking, and I don't want to put you on the spot, Katie, but I know that you know and have worked with Liz in your capacity here at the MAC. Did you have any stories or experiences that you'd like to share too? Sorry.
No, you're fine. You are putting me on the spot. I'm just looking at my, oh, there we go. I'm looking at my display here too, because I wasn't showing up. Well, I mean, Liz has definitely been a fixture ever since. I mean, I've been at the MAC 9 years now, I think, but yeah, she's just been a fixture of the whole art scene, and just always, it was always such a treat when she would come in. And when kind of preparing for the show, I was reading through old artist statements and some old interviews in the paper and things like that, and so it was just kind of fun to do that. And there were a couple parts that I really appreciated. There was one where she was talking about how when she would travel, she would have a sketchbook and would always be sketching the different places as they rode along in the car. And you can kind of see, there's a couple of the paintings in this show where I was like, oh, you can tell, like the Cliffs of Moher in Ireland and things like that. So and then also I was wishing it wasn't 90 degrees today, because I was going to go up in the attic and we have a picture from the McCrosty scrapbooks from, I want to say it was the 1960s, with Liz in a painting, and it was just like, it's just so classic. I just love it. So, so I have nothing of great import to share, but yes, just have always appreciated her work. So,
thank you. We also had another artist this evening who, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now real quick so that I can get to that. Jane Latimer was unable to be here with us this evening, but she wanted to make sure that I sent along her sentiments. She said that, she says, I was encouraged to paint watercolors because of Liz. She brought teachers to the area and shared her passion with all of us. Her paintings inspire me. I hope to be painting as long and as well as she did. So, when we were bringing together all of you folks to have this conversation, it was just to hear and then to think back on this conversation that we're having right now too, just the impact that Liz has had on our community, on the individuals, the ripples, everything from school children to folks in Palette magazine. It's just really amazing for me to see this entire thing come together and to honestly be in the presence of these works here today. And I know we have some folks who are able to be on joining us as visitors tonight, and we have a couple minutes. If any of the other panel participants would be interested in saying a few more words, otherwise I would see if any of the folks who are watching would either be interested in sending a question in via chat or unmuting themselves and asking a question. I can give us a couple seconds to see if we have anything like that.
I can say one little story. I have an absolute favorite, and it's always in my head. My favorite thing that Liz ever said was to just pick up a stick and use that to make your mark on your painting. And I can't remember where it was or how it was that it came up, but it has stuck with me and just totally gotten rid of the feeling of, oh, I don't have the right brush. So now if I don't have the right brush for something I'm trying to do, I'm like, well, I have this, dried up old painted brush and I'm going to use it, and whatever happens, happens with it. And that is a direct influence from Liz because of her reference to pick up a stick.
Well, thank you, Leah.
Yeah.
Well, do you see any chats coming through at all, Katie, here?
I don't.
I know that since we are recording it, if you weren't on with us at the beginning of this artist talk, we're going to try to find a way to make it accessible to the public. And so if anyone is watching this at a later point, feel free to send questions to us here at the McRosty, or potentially, I think also I would like to just leave a little space for the panel participants tonight. If you would be interested in sharing where people, if you're in, if you would like to, where people might be able to contact you as well, we would be more than happy to connect people and help try to answer questions or, anything like that. And I think most everyone has a connection with the Mac too. So if you have a question that comes up later, we can direct you to the folks who might be able to best answer it. So yeah, once again, just thank you everyone for coming out this evening and viewing our artist talk this June for Watermedia by Liz White. Like I said, also at the beginning of this recording, the MAC will be doing opening procedures with safety and health standards in mind over the next couple days. And so if you would like to follow us on social media, whether that's Instagram or Facebook, I think is what we have, those two mainly. You can stay in tune to figure out how you can enter the space and mask requirements and things like that. But I know personally I would love to welcome you to the space so that you can see these exhibits in person and spend some more intimate time with each of the works. So yeah, we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Great. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.